Gets open for three. Dagger!
Hello, and welcome back to Well Beyond the Arc. I'm only one of the hosts. I'm Montana. Unfortunately, David ditched me once again. Oh, I'm getting so used to this by now. I'm just kidding. David's busy, so he will be back hopefully next show. That's everybody's hope, including mine. Trust me, I don't love doing it by myself. But at the same time, it is definitely time to talk basketball. We can't take too much of a break off. We've already skipped so much of the season. So I'm here to talk a little bit of ball with you guys. And then David will be back next week to do a full, complete show. And we might even bring back NBA Player Or, which is a fun game that we've done on here since season 1. I cannot do it myself. I can't ask myself questions, so we're going to wait till next week's show. But thank you guys for being here tonight. If you have any comments, anything you want me to talk about or cover, please drop it in the comments below as we go. We're going to start with what we have started with since the beginning of this show, and that is what is called Good, Bad, and Ugly. And that is when weekly we go over something that is good, bad, and ugly. My good for this week's show was seeing Toronto. And I've been talking so much. I think every single episode this season, I have talked about the Toronto Raptors. And honestly, they're a team to talk about. Get used to it because I'm talking about them more later. But what we're talking about right now is we're talking about the Toronto Raptors embracing Kyle Lowry when he returned on the 76ers the other night. Why is this great? Well, if you're not someone that knows NBA basketball, let me educate you. Kyle Lowry has played a majority of his career for Toronto and was a major part of their most successful team in team history. So the fact that they embraced him is just a testament to that organization. And it was good to see. I'm not a Raptors fan in the slightest. I have a pretty sick Raptors hat that has their like vintage dinosaur logo on it. But other than that, I'm not. And I have a Vince Carter jersey. So I got a couple of Raptors, but I'm not a Raptors fan. I'm going to repeat that. But no, seeing them embrace him was cool because as an NBA fan, not even as a Lakers fan, as an NBA fan, I think it's important that we embrace players that come back and make these returns, and especially if they had a really big impact. And Kyle Lowry, in my personal opinion, I think this isn't even debatable. If you think this is, let's debate. Let's go right now. Kyle Lowry is easily a top 10 Raptor of all time, if not a top 5. And don't look at him now and how he plays now and everything now. And he was a key piece on so many different playoff teams. And without him, they would not be where they are today. They would not have the championship they have. They would not have the success they had. They wouldn't have had the culture that they had. I could go on and on and on. So Kyle Lowry getting embraced, that's got to be my good. My bad is the comments that Rich Paul made about Austin Reeves. Here's why this is bad. What I will start by saying is this. I do believe that somebody like Rich Paul or someone that is not maybe directly involved with the Lakers or with sports should have a chance to express themselves, especially if they are an agent, because I guess you could argue he is directly involved in sports. I personally don't consider a sports agent directly involved in sports because they're not actually there, in my personal opinion. But at the same time, he's very close with LeBron. He's covering a lot of different athletes. A lot of different athletes rely on him and go through him. And so his word carries a lot of weight. And I think context is everything. I think if he would have given better context and said, in my personal opinion, I think that this trade could be successful. I think if Rich Paul gave a little more context, it wouldn't be as bad. But the fact that he's just out here saying, yeah, if the Lakers do this, their season is saved. If the Lakers do this, it's going to make all the difference. I don't think that's a good reflection. And then LeBron coming out and saying that's not what I think at all. That's just Rich Paul and, it's his own thoughts. That's totally good and fine. I think you would completely avoid that if Rich Paul says it in a different way. So, again, I have actually been on the same exact horse of maybe we trade Austin Reeves. At this point, in my personal opinion, I'm not there anymore. I'm not like Austin Reeves is a Laker for life. We keep him forever. But I don't think you part with him at the trade deadline. I just don't think that is a smart move. And I don't think the Lakers will do that. So the comment was stupid. I don't think it carries any weight. There was some sort of post I saw online saying, oh, what if this is actually what LeBron thinks and he's just trying to cover? And here's the thing. That crossed my mind briefly, but I really don't think that's the case, because I do think Austin Reeves very potentially could be one of the pieces that is the future of the Lakers. LeBron is not. LeBron has very limited time. And so I don't believe LeBron is looking to move on from him. And I don't even know if the organization at this point would listen to a LeBron, idea like that. And we saw some of the moves that LeBron was directly responsible for orchestrating or helping orchestrate absolutely blow up in our face with the Westbrook, Carmelo Anthony. I could go on and on. That's the majority of the players we picked up that season. LeBron definitely co-signed on, and maybe you could say AD did as well. But in my personal opinion, there's a much better chance that there's a much better chance that Austin Reeves is a future piece that represents the Lakers long-term than LeBron. And so I don't think they move on from him. And I don't even think, again, I don't think LeBron ever had a conversation with Rich Paul where he was like, yeah, I think we need to move on from Austin Reeves. I do think this truly was just his own opinion, but I think when you carry that much weight with your word, you kind of word it differently, or you say it in a different light at a different time, maybe not during the trade deadline time, because that's just, it makes everyone turn heads and look at the Lakers in ways that the Lakers I don't think want. So moving on to my ugly, it's the injury bug. It's running rampant. It always does throughout the season. Honestly, it always does right before and right after the All-Star break. There's always a whole slew of players that are out. There are a bunch of players, some that are out like with a Jokic, that are going on an MVP tour and that are also trying to help maintain a top 5, especially actually top 4 placement in the West. So you have a player out like that, and then you have the Mavs that are missing key pieces now as well throughout their entire roster. So for me, I think the injury bug has always been biting at this time, but it's biting the worst it's been, and it's affecting teams on all ends of the standings. And so it's quite literally maybe some of the worst it's been. And I think I've said that every single season at one point or another. It's because it's true, and it's really bad right now. So the injury bug is my ugly. And also, you know what? I'm going to do a second ugly since David's not here. I'm going to give us another one. The video, because this actually gives us a segue to our next topic. The video that dropped of Ja Morant and the other Grizzlies player kind of getting into it on the court. That is ugly, and I'm not going to come down on Ja Morant for that, because honestly, if I were him, I would be done with that organization. If I were him, I would be ready for what's next, because I think they've made it clear that they're ready for what's next. I don't think his frustrations are not valid. I don't think we've also seen enough to make any big calls about them doing anything shady behind the scenes, but I just feel like there's some validity in how he feels. But when a video like that drops, someone like Draymond Green knows, thank the Lord this didn't actually get physical on camera, but when something like that drops, the team disintegrates. The team culture, the team chemistry, it disintegrates. And so that's how you know Ja's out of there. That video dropping on social media across all platforms, everyone in the comments is saying, Ja's gone, Ja's gone. This is just proof that Ja's gone. And that really is just proof that Ja is out of there. And I think everybody knows that it's time, but a video like that is just a negative kind of thing that just backs it in a way that isn't great, because I think this actually is a really good potential move for Ja in his career, and I think this just kind of gives a little bit of a bump. It's just a little speed bump. Excuse me. I don't think it's a big speed bump. I'm not out here saying the whole car is going to be going up and flying in the air, but there's going to be a little bounce in that car on this speed bump, because it's a little bit of a speed bump, especially right before you are looking to a potential big move. And that takes us away from good, bad, and ugly and moves us into our next topic, which is Ja Morant. Ever since we did our last episode, the topic of Ja Morant going to another team has exploded. It has absolutely became something that it's not even just a rumor now, with that video dropping and just with him being out now. Of course, he's injured, but also we just know that he's done. He's done there. he had a very exciting, electrifying career with some playoff appearances, some pretty decently deep playoff appearances, and they had some exciting basketball moments of the 2020s. They were definitely one of the fun teams to watch for a couple of seasons, and he was a major part of that with his celebrations. All of what he did on the court was great. Off the court, I'm not going to speak on that because here's what I'm going to say. It's not a great look when you're supposed to be leading a team, when you're supposed to be the face of a franchise, when you're doing things like maybe flashing a weapon on a social media video. But he's human, and also there's been way worse showings and things that have happened on social media from athletes, from celebrities, and they've really, I'm not going to say gotten away with it, but I feel like Ja was a little bit mistreated with the whole situation. And that's not to say maybe he shouldn't have had some suspension or some sort of punishment or something, but I just feel like the way he was treated was a little bit harsh. And maybe that's just me, but I feel like people were a little hard on him, and then that honestly I feel like was kind of what sent the downward. And I feel like it's not too late for him, but what does he have to do? Well, I think he has to go east. And I think that realistically at this moment, there's a lot of quotes, and they're anonymous, but there's quotes from GMs and people in the back office, or front office, excuse me, across the league that say that Ja, they don't want Ja. And this isn't even now. This is from 3+ seasons ago to now. Every time there's a trade deadline, every time there's an off season, and anytime Ja's name comes up, there's executives and people talking about how he would not be a good player to have on their team for whatever reason. And usually it has to do with certain playing reasons, certain injury reasons, certain, just inconsistencies. But I think Ja needs to get out of the West. I think a majority of those anonymous people that are saying Ja's this, Ja's that are Western Conference executives. And so I think he goes east. Where does he go? There are a couple of places I think he goes. Also, if you're in right now, or if you're even in after we're done being live, drop it in the comments. Where do you think Ja Morant ends up? Again, where do you think Ja Morant ends up? One of the places I think he could end up is the Raptors. The Raptors are an exciting team that actually has outperformed what I think many people thought they were going to this season. Mainly me. Maybe other people thought they were going to do what they did. I did not think the Raptors were going to be the team that they were or are. But they have had some inconsistencies, and that position, the guard position on their team, is not the strongest. If you are in the East and you are making a push and you are outperforming where anyone thought you were going to be, why wouldn't you make a move and get a Ja Morant and strengthen that guard position? The Raptors obtaining Ja Morant would mean they're making a push now. That's how I would feel. That to me shows they are making a push this season. They are making a push now. Could they still make a push without him? Of course they could. But when you strengthen a position that, again, the Raptors don't have a player that is one of the worst in the league by any means playing the guard position, but they do not have that kick that Ja Morant would give at that position. And so, again, Ja Morant has been out with injuries. There's been different suspensions, blah, blah, blah. It's Ja Morant. Look up his highlights. Look him up. Google him, all right? Google him. Look up his highlights. Watch a couple of minutes, and you'll understand why any team would be lucky to have him. Forget anything off the court because, again, everybody has a life off of the court, off of the whatever, outside of work. A bunch of people make mistakes. It's just not caught on camera. And that's the biggest problem is he's had several that unfortunately have got caught on camera. There's been receipts. But, again, I'm going to circle back and say I think that those comments from executives have been Western Conference executives. If he gets out of the West, it's going to be there's going to be the best move for him. The other move that I think could happen is the Heat. And here's why. The Heat have plenty of pieces that could equally benefit the Grizzlies. This would be an even split, an even trade. And I don't really think – I think the Raptors one would be somewhat even, but I think the Raptors would definitely be coming out on top of that trade. When it comes to Grizzlies and Heat, that's a much more even trade, especially if the Grizzlies are going into rebuild mode. And so for me, the Heat making this trade would be first of all, they're making a push to make just the play-in. I'm not talking playoffs, I'm talking play-in. They're making a push to make the play-in. why wouldn't you do something like pick up a John Morant, an electrifying player that has late season closeout experience? And yes, he's out right now, but he will be back for whatever team he'd be traded for. He will be back and he will give you his all because he wants to stick it to the Grizzlies and to anybody that's doubted him. And that's scary. Whenever he's just shown up and played, you should be scared. But if he has something he's playing for, which will be the respect of people again, he's going to be playing a different level of basketball. And the Heat are currently 8th or 9th, and they need that different level of basketball. So, and not to mention, Giannis. You ever heard of him? Yeah, Giannis, one of the best players ever. He's actually on a list later that I'm talking about. We're talking top 10 power forwards of all time. And yes, he's on my list for that. Anyways, we'll talk about that later. Stick around if you want to hear that and see that. But he is a player that is looking like he will leave. From the outside perspective, from everyone on the outside is saying he's going to leave, he should leave. He's came out and said he's not going to leave. We're actually going to talk about a few scenarios tonight where I think it strengthens the idea that he doesn't leave. But I think the Miami Heat are going to try to make something that's attractive enough for Giannis, because Giannis doesn't care about Miami nightlife. Giannis isn't going to be going out on the town, going to the clubs. I mean, he might be a little bit, but that's not him. So what he wants is a good situation. And if Ja is traded to Miami and you look at a situation where Ja's in Miami, I think that potentially could be something that could pull him towards Miami. So I think Miami trading for Ja, it makes their situation this season better. It makes their situation in the offseason better for obtaining Giannis or even other pieces, and it makes their next few seasons on better. So I think there is a good chance the Heat pull the trigger. And again, that could include trading like a Tyler Hero and making a trade or trading some pieces that have helped them win. But I think Ja Morant would just be a bigger piece and a more attractive piece in the long run for other players to end up playing with. And so I think that for me is second. I think the Raptors for me is the one I think is the first most possible. And then second up, I think would be he goes to the Heat. And then my third, and again, I think he goes to the East. I do not think Ja Morant stays in the West. Is there a reality where he stays in the West? Of course there is. Anything can happen in the NBA. We've seen millions of different crazy things happen in the NBA. There's probably realistically 2 to 4 things that nobody expects every single season, whether it's a trade, a playoff round loss or win, something along the lines of, or an award win, all of these different things. There's so many different surprises, and maybe there's even more than 3 and 4. There probably are a season. I do think there is a small chance. Yeah. Nah, there's a few other people. Probably not. What's up, bro? Nice to see you. Thanks for tuning in. I lost my train of thought, but what I was saying was, Giannis, speaking of Giannis, like I say, him going to the Heat, he's in he's in Milwaukee. Milwaukee obviously wants to keep him. Who would not want to keep Giannis? They haven't done a great job of putting him in a situation where it looks like they want to keep him. You know they want to keep him. He's came out and said he's not leaving. What would make their situation better? Ja Morant. They trade Ja Morant to Milwaukee. Milwaukee makes a trade back. This trade, as well as the trade I just said with the Heat, I believe would make more sense for the Grizzlies. I think they would get more back. I think you get less back if you trade Ja. If you trade Ja to, to the Raptors. To the Raptors. I think if you trade Ja to the Raptors, you get less back. But at the same time, I honestly think that's the most realistic trade because I think there's a small chance the Grizzlies take what they get from the Raptors and flip it. I think if they get a trade from Milwaukee or if they get a trade from the Heat, they retain those pieces and keep them because you're talking about a Tyler Hero. You're talking about potentially obtaining some pieces that can help you win in the future. But if they trade with the Raptors, I think everything they get in that trade will be used and moved in the future to make a complete rebuild. So I think Ja's definitely headed east. Could he surprise us or surprise me? And again, if you have him going somewhere else, drop it in the comments below. Or if you have him staying with the Grizzlies, if anyone has seen the video of him and his teammate, you know it's over. Maybe there's some reality where they drag it out and then it's a end of the season split up. But it has to be done now, and I believe it will be done now. And I do think he goes east, and I think it makes the most sense if he goes to a team like the Raptors, because the Raptors are making a push, and if they get a player like Morant, that puts them over the top. To me, that makes them a true contender. I don't really think I would consider them at this point a contender, just because I don't think they have everything it takes to get through the gauntlet that is going to be the Eastern Conference playoffs. You get a player like Ja Morant, he's healthy, he's back, he wants revenge, he wants to show everybody who he really is. You have a chance at going decently far in the postseason because he's going to be ready by then. So I think that makes sense. The Grizzlies get some pieces to flip and move, and they go from there. Or again, maybe he goes to the Heat. The Grizzlies get some pieces as well, and the rebuild is not as steep. But I think the rebuild in Memphis is pretty steep no matter what, no matter who they get. But shout out to Ja Morant. We haven't really talked bad about him on this show. We haven't really talked about him at all on this show. We've talked about Russell Westbrook way more than we've ever talked about Ja Morant. So shout out to Ja Morant. But moving on, another player that is in trade news is Kuminga. Kuminga, of course, as we know, is a Warrior. Golden State is just not doing it. I don't even know what I said about them at the end of last season, at the beginning of this season. What I know I did think, though, was that they were going to be better than what they are. I did not think they were going to be a top 3 team. I definitely thought they were going to be within the top 6. And they currently are just not a team that is looking like they're going to be able to maintain a pretty – honestly, the West is always difficult, but I feel like it's more difficult. You look below OKC, and I feel like it's more difficult, and there's not a lot of separation. There isn't going to be a lot of separation. But the Warriors are a team that's kind of starting to find a negative separation from some of those other teams. And I think we're going to talk about, is the Warriors dynasty done? Is this situation with Kuminga a sign that it's done? We're going to talk about that next. Before we talk about the Kuminga is demanding a trade, and everybody knew this was going to happen. I mean, Kuminga, basically, it's been known that he has not wanted to be there for quite some time. I think they're saying since this last summer. I think it goes way beyond that. I think Kuminga has not wanted to be a Golden State Warrior for a couple of seasons. And I'm going to say that again. I don't think he's wanted to be a Warrior for a few seasons now. And it's been very obvious. And I just, they made the move for Butler. They tried to make a push. They kind of made a push. It wasn't enough. I just think they should have parted ways or made some moves and done some stuff differently this last summer, and they didn't, and it's showing. And I think Kuminga demanding a trade is best for everybody. I don't really understand why he is still a Warrior and how he is still a Warrior, and he's not going to be one much longer. Where does he end up? I think the Kings makes the most sense. The Kings have the pieces, and they can definitely make a move that would make sense. And at the same time, the Kings wanted him this last summer. The Kings have already wanted him, and I think the Kings have remained semi-interested. Does that interest fade as the season goes on? Obviously, they didn't get it done in the summer. Yes, it does fade, but with who is out and what's missing for the Kings, I can definitely see them pulling the trigger and making a move. And I think this is better for Kuminga long term. I think he'll be able to play his style and his basketball a lot better in Sacramento as opposed to in Golden State. And it's not even a diss on the Warriors. I just think it's better for everybody. And on the Warriors side, you either get some decently solid role players / pieces that you can flip, or maybe you make a big enough move and you get like a Sabonis. I don't think that's a move that's going to happen. I think that's a player that's probably out of the question. Even if Sabonis is out of the question, I still think that Kuminga could definitely end up being a King. But I definitely think there's a very, very, very good shot that Kuminga becomes a King. That's the one that I'm saying is the best chance. Next up for me that I think could happen, I'm going to say the Bucks again. The Bucks are a team that desperately needs to surround Giannis with younger talent. And again, Kuminga is a player that I think is going to flourish and grow on a team that is not Golden State. That is not a diss on Golden State. I just don't think he fits that system and what they're doing and what they're trying to do, which is make one last push with Curry. I don't think he fits that narrative. I think he needs to go to a team that needs a player like him, which is the Bucks. The Bucks need a player like him. Giannis needs players to surround him that can help win, and I think Kuminga is one of those types of players that would easily be able to fit a system in Milwaukee. So for me, I definitely think there's a chance Milwaukee makes that move, trades a couple of pieces, and gets a player like Kuminga, and I think he'll be a successful part of that team right away, and maybe they even make a playoff push. Now, are they going past the second round? Absolutely not. We're not going to be crazy here. But I think they could actually have more success if they get a player like Kuminga. And the Warriors, again, could obtain some very serious pieces for what they're trying to do. Some other teams I can see him going to, I definitely can see him going to a team like the Mavs. The Mavs are in desperate need of getting some pieces that can help them win and can just strengthen certain positions, and he could definitely do that. And then the Trailblazers. I think the Trailblazers could definitely make a move to get him and they have the pieces. Any team that I just named is going to give the Warriors a little bit of room and a little bit of leg room, and it's just going to offer them either role players and pieces that can maybe help them win some games and strengthen some spots that they don't have right now, or also maybe they get some pieces they can flip and move and get certain players and certain pieces that are going to help them win. So I think for me, it's a good situation. This is a win-win. I'm gonna keep it short and sweet, which is hard for me if you know me. I like to talk too much. I'm gonna keep this short and sweet though. I think this is a win-win for Kuminga because I think Kuminga wins. I think the Warriors win. I definitely don't see a situation where he stays a Warrior. Demanding a trade, that we've seen moments where players will stay on that team. I don't think this is that moment because the Warriors are not in a top 4 spot right now. The Warriors are struggling. The Warriors need to make a move. And so a move is going to happen. I do think the Kings is the most possible situation, followed by the Bucks. But again, I could see a Trailblazers. I could see a Mavs. And maybe he goes to a random other team that I didn't name. But those are the teams that I see being the best fit and having the most pieces to give the Warriors back. If you have any idea, if you're like, I think I know where he's going, let me know in the comments. What is your thought on Kuminga? What do you think? The next part is, with Kuminga demanding a trade, is this a sign that the Warriors dynasty is over? And this is what I'm going to say. The Warriors dynasty has been in the process of being over. This isn't the beginning of the end. This is the middle of the end. The beginning of the end was after they won the championship and Clay started to show cracks in his game and they were losing, and then they trade Clay and they trade for Jimmy Butler, and that was the sign that this is the beginning of the end. And that's no diss on Butler because I think Butler's a phenomenal player, but that move was a signal of the beginning of the end. They are in the middle of the end right now, and that does not mean they're not having any chance at all of getting another championship with Curry, because I actually do think there is a chance that they get a championship with Curry. The window is starting to get a lot smaller, but again, I've talked about how I think there's a chance Giannis goes to the Warriors. Now, he's came out and said his piece about how he doesn't want to leave, and he's happy, and he's this, and he's that, and he's loyal, and I believe him. I don't think he's lying. I truly believe as of now he doesn't think he's going to leave. But thinking about a possibility of him leaving, the Warriors, I think, is one of the most realistic possibilities and the most realistic places. And so for me, I don't know. I think the Warriors dynasty is definitely in the middle of the end. They're not in the last 80. They're not, but from 80 to 100, they're around 50 right now. They're right around 50. They're right in the middle of the end. I definitely think the window is closing. I think they have I'm going to be realistic and say they have 2 years to win a championship, or to at least they have 2 years to make a move big enough to win a championship. And I think they're going to make that move this summer, no matter what that move means. And so, again, the Warriors, I definitely think Curry could win another one. The window's closing. His chance of winning another one is starting to get smaller. But I definitely think there is a chance that he could do it. Nebraska basketball is winning the Natty. You know what? We'll talk some college ball for a second since I don't have a co-host because I don't think my co-host David watches college ball. But yeah, Nebraska basketball is not winning the Natty. What I will say about this, hold on, give me 1 second. What I'll say about this, let me pull it up one more time. Nebraska sports choke. Volleyball choked. Basketball will choke. I do believe they're going to make it to the tournament. And I honestly think, you know what? They'll make it to the 16. They'll make it to the 16, and then they'll choke because looking at the rest of their schedule, I can somewhat agree that they could win out. I don't know if they'll go undefeated, but I don't see them losing more than a handful of games. And then I see them having pretty good placement and going decently far. But let me say they drop out at 16. And to me, when they're looking like they do now, that is underperforming when they need to perform the best. So for me, yeah, you know what? Not winning the Natty, but I definitely think they're going further than what I would like to imagine. I'm not against the Nebraska sports at all. I just am over the inconsistency. Elite Eight. Okay. Elite Eight. Maybe. Perhaps. Elite Eight's the farthest I would go. Moving on. Speaking of players that are inconsistent, or teams that are inconsistent, Anthony Davis. I don't like talking about Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is a player that without him, we would have never won the championship that we won in 2020, the Mickey Mouse chip, Disney and LeMickey. We would have never won that one. We wouldn't have had the success we had during the season leading up to that, and we wouldn't have had some of the success we had in playoff runs after that. Really just one, which was the one in, I don't remember what year. I'm not going to try to pretend like I do. It was when we played the Grizzlies, the Warriors, and then lost to the Nuggets. I cannot remember what, the 2022, 2023, I don't remember. Either way, it was before we got absolutely whooped by the Nuggets 2 years in a row. Nuggets, and then Timberwolves. We've had a rough playoff time. But again, Anthony Davis no longer a Laker. Now he is on the Mavs. One of the most head-scratching moves of all time. I was very sad when it first happened, and then I was like, wow, actually this is one of the best moves we could have had. So Anthony Davis is already being looked at as traded and moved again. He has sustained several injuries throughout his time as a Mav, and he's only been a Mav not even a year yet, I don't think. And so for me, I think this just shows that as sad as it is that he is not a Laker anymore, we are better off. No matter what happens in the LeBron and Luka era, we are better off because Luka's a Laker. Luka's a long-term Laker. I think it's very obvious that Luka is committed to be a Laker long-term, and LeBron is on the way out no matter how many seasons he has left. And so I think Anthony Davis being not a part of our team and not a part of where we're at now is not the worst thing. But at the same time, I am sad that he is sustaining all these injuries and that keeps being injured because he is such a great player. But the question is, he has a hurt hand. He's out until at least March. A couple of teams are looking to trade for him. What are you guys doing? Because here's the thing. It's not like it's guaranteed he comes back in March and is ready to go. First of all, he's going to come back, be reevaluated, and what if he's not ready to go? First of all. Second of all, he's a very cold player. He is a cold-to-start player. He does not come back and drop 50 or 60 and get 20 rebounds. He's lucky if he does anything close to that anymore. But he's not having his best game right away. He's a player that is slow to heat up. So watch him come back in March or even a little bit later. That is when you need your best basketball if you're the Mavs. Because realistically, you're 11th or 12th, a couple of games back trying to make a push. And you might have a shot when you're back that far with how close it is. And so you need him at his best. A team like the Raptors, in my opinion, do not, because they're the team that's been linked to trade talks with Anthony Davis most. Why would they do this move? And that's why I think, going back to what I said about Ja Morant, I think they make a move for Ja Morant because, in my personal opinion, that position needs strengthened more and can be strengthened more with a player like Ja. Anthony Davis is a Disney. He's Anthony Street Clothes Davis. He is very breakable. He's constantly out. And I hate to say that because one of my favorite players to see live is Anthony Davis. Watching him block a ball into the stands live is something you can't even explain. It's as fun as watching Luka do his little, like, it almost looks like he doesn't even get hit and then get any contact, but they still call it and he goes to the line. It's one of those things. It's amazing. It's something you can't recreate that outside of just actually being there. And so for me, I don't like talking about him like street clothes, a Disney, but it's true, and it's more true than ever. And again, the move is it's going to go down as one of the most, if not the most, head-scratching NBA moves of all time. It is insane how this happened, why it happened. I will never understand. I'm very glad it happened, but I don't think Anthony Davis goes anywhere. I think all these teams will go with a player or players that are healthier and that are more available. I think AD remains a Mav, comes back in March, and I do think there is a possibility that he comes back and helps the Mavs get a 10th seed. Maybe. If he comes back, is healthy enough, and it's the right environment. But Cooper Flag is now out. I don't think he's out like for the rest of the season, but I think Anthony Davis will definitely be moved on from. I don't think it will be yet. I don't think it should be yet. Again, the Raptors are the team that's very closely linked to going for him. I don't know why they would. I don't think that makes any sense. They could go for a player like Ja Morant that is much more available and will be much more available and will give you much more, much quicker. So, but then the question is Anthony Davis's career over? I'm over here talking about a Disney, street clothes Davis. Is his career over? Absolutely not. The thing is, Anthony Davis will never be an MVP / Defensive Player of the Year candidate again, as in like an actual serious one. He will have his moments where he looks like one. He'll never have his moments where he's in the standings as one seriously throughout a good big part of the season. And honestly, he hasn't had a season like where he's been consistent enough for that since even when he was a Laker, he didn't really have a season like that for a couple of years. But he is a generational talent, and he will always be able to give teams something. And that's why I think a team will trade for him, will pick him up, or he'll just find a team to sign with that will give him something that will make sense. Again, I don't know what team that will be. I'm actually excited to see where he ends up and how that goes. But I definitely don't think his career is over. Do I think he's winning another championship? Probably not. I think there's a small chance maybe a team like the Warriors or somebody would pick him up. If there's not a Giannis move, maybe the Warriors pick up a couple of players at his caliber or at his star power, such as Anthony Davis. We'll see what they're able to do. I think it's much more likely that he goes to a team like the Raptors in the offseason or another team in the East. I do think he is going East for sure. Again, could he go West? Definitely. But either way, his career is not done. He'll find another home. It's not going to be with the purple and gold, and that's fine by me. But again, I wish him all the best. But I don't think he goes anywhere this offseason. I could be wrong. We could wake up tomorrow and have it say he's going to a team that I didn't even think of or mention. But moving on, we're going to talk quickly about the Lakers because they have a couple of games coming up. One tonight against the Hornets, and then they play the Trailblazers, and then they play the Raptors. How are they going to do? They're so inconsistent. I'm going to say it until they actually start not being inconsistent. I'm not going to cut them any slack. I'm going to cut it short and sweet because I'd rather talk more about the other segments. I think they go 2-1 in their next 3 games. I think they beat the Hornets tonight. To me, that is not really that difficult of a game. Now, could they make it a difficult game if they don't play their best? 1,000,000%, and they have done that too many times. But to me, I think they're going to show up tonight. They showed up against the Hawks. Luka and LeBron had a great game and had a great showing together. They looked a lot better as a team. I think they're going to continue that, and I think that they're going to run away with it. I think the first half will be close, but then I think they'll get it second half and keep their feet on the gas and win out the rest of the game. I do think the Trailblazers, there will be a sneaky game, and I think it'll be a closer game where it's harder fought. I'm still giving it to the Lakers to give them that 2-0, but I do think it's going to be a harder fought game. And then they're going against a Raptors team that I'm going to say is inconsistent because, again, they're missing a certain strength at certain positions. But at this very moment, I think they're better than the Lakers, and they're more consistent than the Lakers in a lot of areas. And so I think it'll be close. We're not going to get blown out, but I think we lose. And then we're looking at the Nuggets next week. That is going to be a game where we're not going to talk about it tonight. We're going to talk about it next show. But I don't know what to expect because the Lakers definitely, if they're 2-1, I feel solid about that game. I think even though we're going to have a loss going into it, I still will feel pretty solid and pretty confident. Now, we could also be 3-0, and then I'm going to feel too confident, and they might as well. But I think time will tell. I need to see how the Lakers play the next few games. They looked great against the Hawks, but it's the Hawks. But the Hornets is really another game where it's the same story. It's the Hornets. They're not a great team. The Lakers should beat them, and I do think they will tonight. So moving on, it's MVP talk time. First of all, before I go into my list, if you are in the comments, either during our live or after, feel free to drop your MVP list. You can go top 5, top 10, or just top 3, or just your top pick overall. I'm going to go top 5, but let me just take a sip of this real quick. So, top 5 MVP. This list looks way different than it did when I first did it. I think we've only done one. We maybe did 2 when David did a show. I think we've only done 1, though. Coming in at number 5 is Wemby. He's back. He was out. I was worried that he was going to miss too many games. He's obviously missed too many for comfort. He can't miss many more games to be ineligible to be an MVP, but he's playing great basketball. He's came back. The Spurs have remained and sustained success, and Wemby is playing great basketball. So Wemby is here because he does it all on both sides of the court, averaging over 20 points a game, and I believe 2.9 blocks a game at this very moment. So Wemby is up here because Wemby is doing great things on both sides of the ball. Number 4, my boy Jaylen Brown. Listen, I hate the Celtics. I love Jaylen Brown. I think Jaylen Brown plays a great brand of basketball. I think he is definitely, it's kind of a Batman and Robin situation, but honestly, either one of them could be Batman. Either one of them can be Batman. So maybe they're both Batman. Maybe they're just Batmans from different universes. Because honestly, I think they complement each other so well. I said this last show. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are the best duo, or at least one of the best duos of the 2020s. They have won a championship together. They have sustained pretty solid success together. And so for me, I definitely think Jaylen Brown, I would consider him as underrated. I'm going to say it right now. I think Jaylen Brown is underrated. He's averaging just under 30 points a game, and he helped boost them out of the abyss of, honestly, I thought they were done. And I was cheering. I was celebrating. I was like, oh, great, the Celtics are out. Jaylen Brown proved me wrong, and I think proved a lot of people, wrong. And the Celtics are a team that's within the top 5 now, and I think they will remain there, and he is the reason they're there. Number 3, if David is watching, or when David watches, he's going to hate this, SGA. OKC, I believe, is 37-4 or something along those lines, and they're playing great basketball. No one's going to catch them. They're going to be the first seed. They are by far the best team in the NBA right now, and it's very much because of SGA. SGA plays a great brand of complete basketball, but in my personal opinion, these 2 players are above him. But again, he's a big part of OKC's success. He's not the only reason that they're where they're at, but he is a big catalyst for where they're at. But the top 2 players are the reasons that their teams are successful, and that is why they're up here for me. Coming in number 2 is Luka Magic. Luka Doncic is amazing. I think I joked about him like almost getting a lot of fake calls and fake calls to the line, and I'm kidding because he does get a lot of calls, but he also is just a super smart player that knows how to get all of these calls and pull all these calls and lean into shots and everything. I mean, he's just a smart player. He knows how to score. Luka is the only reason we're the team that we are this season. If you take Luka off the Lakers and you bring AD back in some universe, or you even bring any other player onto this team, we're not the same team. Luka is the reason we've sustained the success. He's averaging over 30 points a game. He's averaging a little under a triple-double. He is a player that is proving to be one of, if not the best pickups the Lakers have had. I'm going to say that's above LeBron. That's above AD. Yes, they won us a championship, but I think Luka is a player that could help win us multiple championships, and I will die on that hill. Number 1 is Joker, and I'm going to say it right now. Joker's injured right now. Joker's not even in. Joker is literally injured. That's how great he is. He is Mr. Triple-Double. He is playing an amazing brand of basketball. He will be back. He will be eligible to be MVP. I do believe he will win it. I think it will come down to him or Luka. I could be wrong. SGA could absolutely pull it off. But I definitely think it's going to be SGA, Luka, or Joker. Of course, there's players out of the top 5. There's Cade Cunningham. There's players that are playing great ball that I think will make their case. But I think the 3 players that I see remaining in a top 5 list are SGA, Luka, and Joker. I don't see them dropping out. But Joker's my number 1. Again, he's out, but he's had some absolutely insane performances. And when he comes back, he will have an absolutely insane performance. I'm calling it right away. It won't take him more than 1 or 2 games, if even that. So that's my MVP list. Let me know below what your MVP list is. Am I crazy for having Joker as number 1 and Luka as 2 and SGA all the way at 3? Or am I kind of a genius? I don't know. You tell me. 2 more segments to go, and the next one we're going to keep it short and sweet, but I want to talk about All-Star Weekend. It's coming up. Here's what I'm going to say. The question is the All-Star Weekend dead? And it's an easy question to answer. The All-Star Weekend in sports, not just NBA, in sports, has been dying for years, right in front of our eyes. It's not been as exciting. It's not been as highly viewed. It's not been as much of a spectacle. And the NBA has done the worst job of adapting. They've tried all these different formats. They've tried all these different things. None of them have worked. I think the NBA needs to completely change their format, and I think money talks. We saw with that NBA Cup that the fact that there's a money incentive, even though these players are making, most of them, much more than that incentive, some of them are not. And so the fact that there's an incentive and there's this, there's that, I think since money definitely talks, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, I think it's a completely valid thing that money would be talking. So I think you add some sort of money, especially to the contests. You add some sort of prize, some sort of something lucrative for the player in the contest so that you can get more players and you can get maybe some higher caliber players to come and do it. And I think also you maybe add some level of spectacle to it. I don't think you add like crazy props and crazy this and crazy that, but I think you kind of make it feel more retro because there used to be a lot more. I feel like dunk contests had a lot more props. There was a lot more buildup. And so I think you really push that. If the NBA would push that more, I think that would make a difference. And then with the three-point contest, I think really pushing for these stars that have wanted to come back and do it again. I think just making it more lucrative for them. Money talks. Making something make sense with that. I think you'll have a lot more success. And then I also think making something like a 2v2, something, or even a 1v1. Yes, you can still have some sort of game, some sort of something where they're all together. But I think you look at that less. I think the NBA's biggest problem with All-Star Weekend is they focused more on the All-Star game. What can we do this season? What can we do that season? How can we change the format every year to something that is worse than the last one? Instead of just saying, okay, we'll have some sort of game because people vote as a Team East, Team West, whatever. But what if they did instead 2v2s, 1v1s, three-point contest, dunk contest? What if we did it where the teams get points from these events? And it's more like that as opposed to a game. And yes, maybe you still have some sort of game with fun scoring rules or something, but I just think they need to completely change it. Go back to the drawing board and actually change the whole weekend. Don't just tweak the game and make it stupid. And so we will see. It's going to be another All-Star weekend where it's the same old, even though they slightly change everything. It's just not going to be enjoyable. As a sports fan, the NBA All-Star Weekend is dead, and I hope they completely switch it up. And again, I would love a 1v1, a 2v2, some sort of system where it's just completely different. So we will see. Moving on, we're going to do our top 10 of the day, and today's top 10 is top 10 power forwards of all time. We are going through and doing top 10s at every position. Last episode was top 10 centers of all time. I actually, the person that was, shout out to Manoli. I want to give him a shout out. Shout out to Manoli. He was very great last show and in it the whole time. He said my list for top 10 power forwards was actually solid, or excuse me, top 10 centers. Let's see if my top 10 power forwards list is as solid. Coming in at number 10 for my top 10 power forwards of all time is Elvin Hayes. Elvin Hayes was an NBA champion and played a very solid level of basketball, specifically defensive, but he also was able to score, and I think Elvin Hayes is one of the forgotten players. He was a 70s player, and I think that's part of it. I think a lot of the players in the 70s, if you weren't Kareem, if you weren't Wilt, if you weren't Jerry West, even in the early 70s, if you weren't some of these marquee players, I think you were forgotten. I think he was one of those players. So Elvin Hayes is my number 10. Number 9 is Chris Bosh. Chris Bosh is, I think, another player that people sometimes forget in the mix of everything, but he was one of the key pieces of the Miami Heat's success and their 2 championships in the mid 2000s, early 2010s. He was a big, 2010s, yeah, you know what I mean. He was a big part of some very big basketball success, and unfortunately his career was cut short. Some might argue that he's too high on this list and shouldn't be on this list above certain people, but I do think he is on this list because his impact on that Miami team cannot be denied. Number 8 is Pau Gasol. Gasol, 2-time NBA champion, one of the best to ever do it for the purple and gold. Now again, that's only 2 championships, but his time with the Lakers was not very long, but it was very successful, and without him, Kobe does not win again. I'm just going to say it right now. Kobe maybe wins 1, but he does not win 2 more without Pau Gasol. That's who Pau Gasol is. That's the type of player he is, or was, excuse me. And so Gasol is a major part of NBA basketball and Laker basketball history, and so shout out to him, number 8. Number 7 is Kevin McHale. Sometimes people may also forget him, but he was a big part of Celtics basketball and NBA basketball history. Big part of those teams in excuse me. Big part of those teams, big part of success, a multi-champion winning player, and also one of the best to do it. I think we also, again, forget how great he is. Getting into our best of the best, number 6 is Charles Barkley. This is one player that does not have a championship. There's only one other player up above him. Actually, there's 2 players on this list that don't have a championship. This is one of them. But multi-MVP, went deep in the playoffs. If a player named Michael Jordan didn't exist, Charles Barkley would at least have 1, if not 2. So Charles Barkley definitely is a player that is, I'm not going to say he's forgotten or overlooked because he would be on many people's top 10 power forwards of all time. He is a great player, and he is one of the best to do it. Coming at number 5 is Giannis. Giannis is obviously still playing, and Giannis is definitely a player that I can see people Maybe having lower, maybe having higher. To me, he's a number 5. He's one of the best to do it. He's an MVP. He's a champion. He definitely deserves to be in a better situation than he is in, and I definitely think he will end up in that no matter what that means. But despite all of that, he is great where he's at. I do believe he'll win one more. I do think he'll actually – I'm giving Giannis 2 more at the minimum. Hey, if he comes to the Lakers, he's going to win like 6 more. Come on now. But no, I think Giannis at least wins 1 more, and I think I'm going to give him 2 more championships no matter where he ends up, even if he stays a Buck. I think it's much more likely he only wins 1 more if he stays a Buck, but I think he's definitely winning more championships. So Giannis is definitely deserving to be on this list. Now we're getting to our top 4. Number 4 is Kevin Garnett. He is an MVP. He is a champion. He played for the Timberwolves, and then he also played for the Celtics where he won his championship. We're not going to talk about his time as a net. I suppose we could, but I'm going to choose not to. One of the best to ever do it. Definitely a player that I think without him, Celtics do not have the success they had in the 2000s. So Kevin Garnett definitely was the piece that helped bring them over the edge. And they didn't have the amount of success that I think some people thought they were going to have, but still without him, they would not have had any of the success they had. Coming at number 3 is Karl Malone, the mailman. Obviously, this guy's a little sketchy, but he is definitely an NBA legend, and he deserves to be in a top 10 list for his playing on the court. He is the player I was talking about that never won a championship, but he is definitely deserving of it because he is in many top lists, accolade-wise and stat-wise, and so I got to give it to him. Getting into our top 2, number 2 is Dirk. Dirk, I mean, come on, it's Dirk. That Mavs team, I truly think, is the greatest championship team of all time in NBA basketball. And I'm talking like best story, best playoff run. The fact that they went up against the Heat and did what they did, legendary. And so Dirk, without Dirk, you don't have that. So Dirk, one-time champion. I would say best Mav of all time. I would say easily top 50 player of all time, all position-wise. Dirk is just undeniably great. Number 1, Tim Duncan. You had to know he was going to be number 1. Maybe you didn't know he was going to be number 1. Tim Duncan, Spur legend, multi-champion, took down many great teams, got taken down a couple times as well, but was undeniably one of the greatest players of all time and played a certain brand of basketball that, while some would call boring, I would say was definitely just some of the best basketball, some of the most consistent basketball as well. And so Tim Duncan, number 1 power forward of all time. That is my list. Missing from this list, Dennis Rodman. You could even say AD, but Draymond Green. There's definitely players that I left off of this list that I've got to give an honorable mention to. But that takes us to the end of another show. David will hopefully actually be back next week. He's a busy guy. He's got a big job. He's doing big things, and I'm proud of him. He's also doing a show called Mind of Football Fans. Mind of the Football Fans, I believe. I always forget everything, but I believe it's Mind of the Football Fans. It is for us, some of us, soccer, but it's a show that him and his buddy do, and they talk about a bunch of different leagues for soccer, and it's very enjoyable. Mind of the Football Fans, or Mind of the Fans, I don't even know. I honestly don't remember the name. But either way, you can find it. I'll put it in the comments so that you go to the right place. But again, he should be back next week. And then I will be doing a show, my college football show, The College Football Junkie. Me and Mark will be back. It may be post-season, and we may be talking post-season, but we may get a show in before the championship. I'm not quite sure. But thank you guys so much for tuning in to another show. If you have any top 5s or top 10s you want me and David to go over next week, please drop it in the comments. If you have anything you want us to talk about next week, please drop it in the comments. Thank you guys so much, and have a good week.